cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, that ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday.
Welcome back to the On The Ball podcast. This is episode, oh my God, I've literally just forgotten. I think it's 46.
46.
I'm 46, I think that's what I said. Yeah. Short-term memory loss, back at it again. As you just heard, I'm joined by Rhett once again. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, man. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. It's actually, obviously, apart from all the lockdown stuff in Victoria, the weather's actually turned it on. Last few days, it's been blue skies, sunny, even though it's like 14 or whatever.
Yeah.
I reckon the temperature is irrelevant in Melbourne. I think if the sun's out, there's no wind, it's an elite day, no matter if it's like 12 degrees. I'm sure it's colder down in your part of the woods, or has it actually been all right?
It's been similar, but just a couple of degrees colder. But yeah, I've been enjoying the sun as well.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. We had our, you're obviously our premier interstate guest. We had our second one because Brownie's back in Canberra, so...
Oh, yeah.
We now have had 2 interstate guests. But anyway, onto what we're talking about today. We are doing a kind of a season review for the Bundesliga and the Ligue 1, so the German and French first divisions, basically. So we're just going to be talking about the season. We're going to talk about teams that impressed us, teams that disappointed us, who we think were the best and worst signings, and players who probably deserve to get picked up by a bigger club or saved from relegation. So I think we'll start with the Bundesliga, probably a bit more interesting than the Liga, I have to admit. A lot more interesting names and more interesting clubs there. In terms of just a general overview of the Bundesliga season, Bayern won, obviously. I think it was like the 9th in a row or something. The teams that made the Champions League was Dortmund, Leipzig, and Mönchengladbach. The teams that made the Europa League was Leverkusen, Hoffenheim, and Wolfsburg. And then the relegated sides were Fortuna Düsseldorf and Paderborn. So no one cares. And then the cup final, Bayern beat Leverkusen. I think that was only a few weeks ago. And recently, I think it was 3 weeks ago, the relegation playoff happened. So Werder Bremen were in it from the Bundesliga, but they actually won. They were up 1-0, and then in the 85th they conceded, but then they scored in the 92nd and conceded again in the 97th, but they won on away goals. So I have to say, I don't really rate the relegation playoff concept. It's kind of unfair because it's like, well, obviously the Bundesliga team should win because they have more like revenue from broadcasts and stuff. So it's not really a fair playing field. And that's kind of been shown. I think the Bundesliga team has won it every time except for twice.
Who'd they play against?
Like Heidenheim or something. I've never heard of them. I've seen the badge on FIFA, but never heard of them. So yeah, but fair play to Werder Bremen. They were in the automatic relegation zone for the last 14 rounds. And then in the last week, they whipped out like a 6-0 win or something. And that pushed Dusseldorf down into the automatic relegation, and they escaped this. So interesting stuff. But we might be talking about a few of their players in a minute. In terms of teams that impressed you the most in the Bundesliga, who are you bringing up?
Apart from the obvious candidates, because like Bayern were good in the they were like really impressive in the last 15 or so rounds when they went on that unbeaten run. But for me, I went with Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think of the top 4 of the Champions League spots, I think they were the most unexpected.
Yeah.
And for almost half the season, I think they were leading the league. They got off to an absolute flyer. And I think just the way that they play, they've got young players, young manager. They play like a fearless, pretty complex style. I think it was just really impressive to watch. I really like the way the 2 Frenchmen, Player and Tram.
They were so good to watch.
Interchange up top.
3 matches, I think.
They scored some.
I think I watched them 3 times. What did they score together? Like 20 goals combined.
I think a couple more than that.
And a lot of them were like assisted by each other.
Yeah,
so it was like silly.
It's not often you see like a genuine two men up top.
Yeah.
So I think that was
And
it's just good to
they
watch.
were both new signings, I think. I think it was, I don't know if Player was there last year, but I think it was definitely Tram's first year because I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. So
No, it was
good signing.
Player's first season as well. So for them to come in and work that well is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they lost Torgan Hazard, who was probably their best player in the last 3 years. So
Yeah, for
did
sure.
well to not miss him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a fair shout. I can't lie, I've kind of sat on the fence for quite a lot of these. I've had a few, but the one I'd like to mention, Hoffenheim. So they finished ninth last year, came sixth this year, but they actually only won one more point than they did last year. However, they lost Julian Nagelsmann, who's meant to be the next Pep Guardiola. Who went to Leipzig, and they actually had a transfer profit, of 67 million. So you would expect them to kind of splash that out this year, and they could be in line for a cheeky Champions League run, and really push for that top four this season. So although they didn't necessarily improve in terms of performance, I think the fact that they were so conservative in that transfer policy and they lost their coach, I think they did pretty bloody well.
Yeah.
I did see though the other day their coach got sacked for this year, which I think is pretty stiff considering they came sixth, and the 5 teams above them were probably expected to finish above them.
Yeah.
So I don't really know why they did that, but yeah, that's fair enough. Other teams that probably deserve a mention: Freiburg. They came 13th last season, came 8th this season. They were only 1 point off the Europa League, and for a really small club, that's a good effort. And they didn't really go out and splash big. They only had a transfer loss of 10 mil. So that was a good effort. And then Union Berlin, in their first year in the Bundesliga ever, they finished closer to the European spots than they did to relegation. So that's very impressive. Came 11th with 41 points. And similar to Freiburg, they didn't splash out. They didn't do like the Aston Villa or the Fulham and just get promoted and splash out 100 mil. They only had a transfer loss of 6 million. So I think they did very well there. In terms of teams are there any others you would like to mention, or do you want to go straight to the disappointments?
I mean, I think I was expecting Borussia Dortmund and Leipzig to play as well as they did, and I don't think any of the for what's it called, Leverkusen to do that well after losing Julian Brandt is pretty impressive. But
and the death of Leon Bailey.
He's that well then, mate. He's just fallen
pretty
off.
well.
He's fallen off the edge of the world. Yeah, but I think we'll mention Havertz later. But yeah, he did. He managed to carry them into the Europa League spots at least, where he should not be playing. But we'll move on to that later. Your disappointment, mate? Your disappointment?
Teams are disappointed. I've got a few once again. Probably the main one though, Frankfurt. They lost Jovic, Haller, and Rebic, which is very tough to replace.
Mm-hmm.
But they just did not use the money well. What did they get for that? I think they got 80 mil for Jovic, 40 mil for Haller, and I don't think they got much for Rebic, only 15 or something. But that's a lot of money for a mid-tier table side.
Yeah.
And they actually went backwards, which I guess you could expect early on. But
for sure.
They just didn't use that money well. In saying that, they had a transfer profit of 49 mil, so they've still got more to spend. But they spent a lot of their money on 22, 23-year-olds for 15 mil, and none of them played consistently. None of them played that well. So probably disappointing from them, because you think, almost like a Leicester, you would want to be cashing in on those good players and then propelling yourself up from it. But I guess Leicester did probably take a dip after the Kantes and the Drinkwaters left for big money. So who knows? Maybe in a couple of years, it might have been a genius year to just go conservative and then spend it well this transfer window. And then in terms of placings, Werder Bremen and Fortuna Düsseldorf. Bremen dropped from 8th to 16th, and Düsseldorf dropped from 10th to 17th. So it kind of just speaks for itself, really. Pretty average footy from them. But yeah. What about you?
I've gone with Schalke.
Yeah,
I thought
they were. They're
only
like the worst team post-lockdown.
only 9 wins this in the entire season. I think the biggest mistake was appointing Wagner as the coach. I mean,
Strange, wasn't it?
yeah, I think I know he played an exciting style at Huddersfield, but he just looked out of his depth, and the team just didn't have the structure to for a good enough defensive record to go anywhere near the European places. They conceded 13 shots a game, and they just relied on players who were too young and too inconsistent.
Exactly.
Like Rhett.
Every other team, like Mönchengladbach, Leverkusen, who are probably similar size to Schalke.
Mm-hmm.
They have notable players, as we were saying, Leverkusen have Havertz, Demirbay, Mönchengladbach have Tram player, used to have Hazard. Where this Schalke team, if I hadn't done some statistical research, I don't think I could name a single bloke in attack.
No one in their team scored more than 7 goals.
Yeah.
But I think they just had no structure going forward, and really poor structure going backwards as well. So I think he just didn't have. I don't know if the players didn't suit his style, or he's just not that good. But he just didn't manage to put the team together in a way that was cohesive at all, to be honest.
Yeah, it was weird. Kind of going into the lockdown, they weren't looking too bad, although they were kind of just relying on defense, which is never ideal. They were coming 8th, I think, maybe even 7th, and then I think they were finished maybe 2nd or 3rd last in terms of post-lockdown.
They just started conceding goals. They conceded 4 against Freiburg and then 4 against someone else. It's just their goal difference ended up being -20. So and they didn't look like scoring. They didn't look like scoring. The game I watched against Dortmund, it was just poor.
All right. So now moving on to our best signings. It's a tough one because you've got to weigh up money and value and all that stuff. But I've gone with 4. I'm not going to go too in depth on all of them, but I think they're all pretty well known names and not surprising. Actually, you say yours first because there's probably a good chance
you probably still on mine. I've gone with Christopher Nkunku.
Yeah, he was in there.
Did you have him? Yeah, I thought so. So he came
as well.
Yeah, he came from PSG, young midfielder. I just liked how dynamic he is and how versatile he is as well. He played on the wing, and I think as he was being brought up through PSG's ranks, he was always a midfielder. So I think to be able to play as an attacking midfielder and as a winger coming off the bench and contribute 5 goals and 13 assists is pretty extraordinary. And I think his expected goals was 7.6, so could have had a few more, but his expected assists only 8.8, so some good finishing from Werner and the lads, but still, if you look at that, that's an impressive first season in the Bundesliga. And even more so, he only started 21 of the 34 games and contributed a goal or assist every 107 minutes. So for comparison, Sadio Mane, being talked about as one of the best players in the Premier League this season, contributed a goal and assist every 110 minutes. So Mane, just get on his level, mate. Just get on this guy's level.
Yeah. And he didn't play that much senior footy at PSG, so I think it was really impressive how he just came in straight away and just started tearing it up.
Yeah.
Because although he is 22, which is still young, but it's not like he's just come straight out of the academy. I don't think he could crack that PSG midfield too much.
No.
So it's very impressive.
It's pretty interesting. Oh, go on.
Yeah, he got 5 men of the matches, which is, when considering he only started 21 games, that's pretty silly.
Yeah.
He had 2.3 key passes a match. And to be in the top 50 in Europe in that stat, you need to average 1.9. So he's probably looking at a top 20 there in the whole of Europe's top 5 leagues.
Yeah.
And then 1.7 dribbles, which is has him just sitting around 100th in the top 5 leagues, which sounds silly, but when you consider how many players there are in the top 5 leagues, that's still pretty handy.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to his he's got a very versatile skill set, and I think as Werner goes and he probably moves a bit even further forward, we could see probably that increase even more.
Yeah. So in terms of, is he your only man or?
Yeah, you go first, and then I'll
Alright.
mention if I have any more.
Oh, well, that makes me. I'll go with the one you're not going to mention first, all right? Because there's two that you probably are going to mention. So I've got Kevin and Babu. He went from Young Boys to Wolfsburg for only $9.2 million as a 25-year-old right back. 18 starts, 4 man of the matches. So similar to Nkunku, basically racking up the man of the match award like once every 4 games. He had 3 goals and 1 assist in 18 starts as a right back, which is pretty handy. He had 3.5 tackles a game, and to be in the top 50 for that stat in the top 5 leagues, you have to average 2.6. So I think he was sitting in 4th for that stat in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had 2.4 clearances, which isn't that much. You can see people get up to like 6, but in a team that weren't too bad in Wolfsburg, I think they came 7th or something. That's not too bad at all, especially as a fullback. You know, the centre backs usually get a lot more clearances. And then he had 1.2 interceptions, which is has him just sitting outside that top 50 in the top 5 leagues. So just very solid all round right back. Sounds so arrogant, but I see myself as a Kevin and Babu. Like, he doesn't seem like the most gifted when you watch him, but he's kind of just like pretty handy at most aspects of it, and he just does a job.
Have
And
you
it
seen him on
almost seems to be
FIFA?
his work rate. No, I haven't. I've heard he
He's
hasn't.
fucked. He's fucked on FIFA. So
Really?
that's just how I've got my knowledge on him.
Well, he tested positive for COVID 2 days ago, so he's
Did he?
fucked in real life as well. Bad jokes. But yeah, great pickup from Wolfsburg. Always, I can't lie, on FIFA, I know this is a stupid thing to go off, but he always had a pretty good card, but he was just like in the Swiss league, so it's a bit random. And I always remembered him because he had like the dreadlocks and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a cool name. So it's good to see him finally move to a better league and kill it straight away, really. And him and Roussillon on the other end just was kind of the key to Wolfsburg's success because they just whipped in balls to Weghorst, who's like 7'8".
Yeah.
And he was just heading them home. So, yeah, really crucial player. And, yeah, awesome signing. Great value as well.
Yeah, good footy from those boys. Who else have you got?
I've got Marcus Tram, as we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
22 years old, £9 million, which was an absolute steal. I don't know how he went for 9 mil, but anyway. He came from Guingamp, which is a very small team in France, which is the reason why it was only 9 mil.
Yeah.
Brought by Mönchengladbach, plays as a striker, but kind of started on the left wing and then slowly moved in. As we kind of mentioned before, 28 starts, 10 goals, 8 assists. He averaged only 1.8 shots a game, so he's not a Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not just firing shots every time he gets the ball. Similar to the other guys we've mentioned, 5 man of the matches, and in a good team, that's very impressive. He won 2.5 aerials a game, which is very handy for a winger/striker.
He's huge, man.
Would easily have him in the top 50 in terms of that stat for forwards and wingers. And then he averaged 2 dribbles a game, which is pretty handy for someone of his size.
Yeah.
All right, I've got one more. Do you want me to fire away, or would you like to take
I think the obvious one is Haaland.
Yeah, that's who I've got.
Yeah, I think he's just a disgusting prospect.
If anything, just performance alone, the financial side of it is insane. They got him for 20 mil. They're going to be selling him for 80 to 100 mil.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's the smartest pickup I've ever seen. I don't know how, they probably were, but I think he might have had a buyout clause, but I don't know how every team wasn't trying to snap him up.
Yeah, I think
just for that reason. Like, you can't make a loss on him.
Is there some clause where after a couple of years his buyout clause drops to 50 million or something? I think there's something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I know he also has a clause which means he can't leave this window, which is good for Dortmund.
Yeah. But like either way, he's going to contribute to them so much in the next year or two, and he's going to develop so much as a player. I think by the time he leaves, he'll already be one of the best strikers in the world, if he isn't already.
Yeah, 13 goals and 2 assists he came off the bench a couple of times, but 11 starts in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
And then including his time at Salzburg, he had 10 goals, 1 assist in 6 starts in the Champions League. So just stupid stuff. And
Yeah.
similar to Tram, he only takes 2.5 shots per game, which sounds like a lot, but for a striker at the top of a dominant team, you would expect a lot more. So that's a good sign, I guess, that he's putting away pretty much every chance he gets.
Yeah, because they're all inside the 6-yard box.
Yeah, and that's something I noticed when I watched him play. He's not like your standard striker who they played into him early and he's just looking to shoot. Like he is like part of the dynamic system that Dortmund play, and he just seems to be on the end of all the good moves. He just has an unreal knack, and he also scores quite a few bangers. To be fair to him, he's not. Yeah, so that's easily. I think that's probably number one, just because the fact that they're going to be selling him for a ridiculous amount. But
I also think Pavard he's been pretty good as well.
Yeah,
I think. Because of all the injuries that went on in that side, he played right back and centre back. So I think his versatility, was pretty handy for them. And seeing as though they had the most clean sheets, conceded the least amount of goals, despite Hernandez going down, Boateng going down, it was pretty impressive. So good on him.
You've just mentioned Luca Hernandez there, so we're going to move into the worst signings of the season. All right, I have to say, my worst signings were stiff. But
same.
For me, it's just the money.
Yeah.
So he missed 12 games through injury, which is quite a lot. However, there was 34 rounds, so he was available for 22. Only started 10 games. 80 mil. That's like what we paid for Van Dijk, and he won us the Premier League. So I don't know. And the thing is, he's young, but he's only 20. He is 24. It's not like he's 20.
Yeah.
He came from Atletico. He had a Who Scored rating of 6.5. And
that's very average.
That's very poor, especially in such a good team. You're usually guaranteed like a 6.8 early. To be in the top, just to give some context to that, to be in the top 50 in Europe, you have to have an average of 7.3. So he's a long way off.
Yeah.
He had less than 1 tackle a game, less than 1 interception a game, less than 1 block a game, less than 1 clearance a game. So I know he's playing for a dominant team, so he's probably not going to need to do too much defending. That's just pretty poor. So although it's very stiff because of injury and he's probably one for the future, I just think if soccer was stopped right now, 80 mil for what he's produced for them is pretty silly. But unlucky. And the next one's kind of a similar vibe. Nico Schultz, 25.5 million. I actually don't know if this is dollars or pounds. I won't assign a currency to it. He went from Hoffenheim. Well, if you want to see it, go on Transfer Marks and but who cares? Hoffenheim to Dortmund. He's 27 years old, which already, to me, that's a bit red flags.
Yeah.
He's a left back, 27 years old, and you're paying 25.5 mil for him. I'm like, that's interesting. And he only started 7 games, which makes it even worse. Similar to Hernandez, he had a rating of 6.5 on Who Scored. Every defensive stat went down from last year to this year. I know he went to a better club, so he's going to need to defend less, but it's still a big worry. He went from 2 key passes to 0.3 key passes a game. He went from 5 assists to 0 assists. So last year he was in the top 50 in Europe's top 5 leagues for key passes. Now he wouldn't even be in the top 200. So
chin up, son.
Very interesting. But similar to Hernandez, he did miss 9 games through injury, but even when he was fit, he was struggling to get a gig ahead of Rafa Guerrero. They started playing that 5 at the back system, which definitely suited a more attacking fullback like Guerrero. To me, this is just not looking like a great signing at all, especially for his age.
Yeah.
So although both of them pretty stiff because they were injured, and I guess time will tell. I think they were, especially the Nico Schultz one. It's probably a bit of a left field call, but I think when you look at the stats and stuff, it's pretty bad.
And his age as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have any other suggestions for that, or did you find that too hard? They were hard to pick, I have to say.
This one is even harsher, probably. I'm going with
This is more disappointing than anything, but I've gone with Philippe Coutinho because even though
remember
he managed to
Wait,
contribute.
did they actually buy him?
No,
Or was
he was
still
alone. But
Alright.
I'm counting that as a signing.
Yeah, they can.
But I think the most disappointing thing is that Bayern don't want him, Barca don't want him. I think it's just
Arsenal
done.
want him.
It's done exactly. That's just as bad as not being wanted by your actual clubs. But like, he got outclassed and like by Muller, like who everyone thought was going off a cliff. But good on him for revamping his career. But like, I think going into the season, I think Coutinho would have thought he could have been the center of that side, the center of the attack of that side, but he just didn't manage to hold down a spot. I don't know if I think he showed like flashes of brilliance, but he could have done so much more and just like reignited his career. But I think it's just continued like the slow descent since he's left Liverpool. So I think for him, it was more disappointing than anything. But
yeah,
I hope he comes back to the Premier League and just reminds everyone how good he is, because I love the man.
Yeah, I can't lie that him and James, they're turning out to their careers are slowly. They've both done the Bayern loan move, and their careers seem to just be slowly petering out, which is sad. I think they both still have time left in their careers. They're not dead and buried at all. But Locke was saying to me yesterday that Barca were considering a swap deal for Guendouzi for Coutinho, straight swap. And Locke was saying surely they have some money to that. And I was like, I genuinely don't think they would. I don't know who would want Coutinho, and Guendouzi has a lot of potential. So but yeah, it's a sad one for Coutinho. He's a weird player. He's almost a player who needs to be the star of the team.
Yeah,
like I think that's thrived at Liverpool because we just pass it to him and see what he could create. Where I think he struggles to fit into a high level system.
Yeah,
where he's one of like 6 attacking players.
Yeah, he needs the ball to his feet, and he needs to be the apex of the side.
Yeah, which is like what Messi is, what Muller and Thiago are. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits into any team.
Yeah, might be better.
That's fair enough. I respect.
Might be better for him to just go to Arsenal, where he would be the center of the side. He would be the best player in the team. So
yeah. And then on the other side of the coin, back on the positive side of the Bundesliga, players who deserve a move. There's quite a few here. There's been a lot of great performances from players outside the top 3-4 clubs. For number one, I guess. Wait, you go first, because once again I've got like 5 or 6 down.
Yeah, I think the number one for me had to be Kai Havertz.
Yeah.
He just oozes class, mate, and he's just too good to be playing in the Europa League. I just want to see him against quality opposition week in, week out with some actual help from the players around him. Offense like Demirbay and stuff are like some quality players, but I think if he has the likes of, I don't want to see him go to Chelsea, but imagining him on the end of chances from like Pulisic, Mount, and the likes, I think he's going to dominate the league. Yeah, his finishing is like, he just has like.
Speaking of Arsenal, I actually wouldn't mind him going there, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't want to see him.
Chelsea have enough already. Like, I don't know if they would use Havertz too well, but I'm sure he would dominate wherever he goes. But
yeah, I think they're just signing too many forwards, Chelsea. I don't know what they're going to do with them all. What are they going to do with Pulisic, Mount, Werner, Ziyech, Abraham? You can't fit all those players in the side. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So that's why I don't want to see him go to Chelsea. But I hope he comes to the Prem full stop. But he's been silly. He only had 3 men in the matches in 29 starts, which is odd. But he had 18 goal involvement, so 12 goals, 6 assists.
Yeah.
2 key passes, 1.9 dribbles, so all pretty handy there. And he played for Leverkusen, who aren't a small club by any means, but too small for him. He's a big fish in a small pond there.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one, the main other one I wanted to mention. So Babu and Tram, I've already mentioned, they both are candidates for this. They probably are playing at clubs too small for them. And then Alassane Playa and Filip Kostic probably also deserve a mention, but they are 27 years old.
Kostic has been impressive for like a couple of years for sure.
Yeah, and same as Player. So although they are 27, I still think they deserve maybe a smaller step up. Maybe not to like, your big Champions League clubs, but definitely bigger than the clubs they're at. So the other guy I wanted to mention is someone we actually highlighted in one of the Bundesliga episodes, Suat Serdar, 23-year-old centre mid from Schalke, who came 12th, as we mentioned before. He had 7 goals in 19 games, so he was their top scorer, playing in centre mid. He had 4 man of the matches in 19 starts, 4 tackles and interceptions a game, and to be in the top 50 in the top 5 of Europe, should be averaging 4.6, and that's including defenders and stuff, so right up there for that. 2.7 dribbles a game, which is
that's really impressive.
About dribbles. Yeah, if you average more than 2.2, you're in the top 50, so he's probably looking at like the top 20 with that. So just seems to be a really well-rounded centre mid with kind of all aspects to his game. So I'd like to see him go to a bigger club. And maybe while we're on the topic of Schalke, maybe Amin Harit as well. But they're the main 2 I wanted to mention, Havertz and Serdar. Anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I forgot about the relegation playoff, so I'll move my candidate. I had Rashika from Werder Bremen.
No, they won the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I had him as my relegated player.
Oh, no, yeah, I have him in my relegated players as well.
Yeah. So, chin up. He's basically got relegated.
Yeah, because it's a bad club.
Yeah.
He deserves to be relegated.
Yeah. No, but I think he could seriously contribute to a sort of middling like Premier League team or something like that. A team who have a strong defence but lack or rely on individual brilliance. I think that's Burnley. What he did. Yeah, Burnley, Aston Villa, any of those absolute shit shows.
Sorry, Burnley, but he's too cultured for you.
I think he could be good for
plus Brexit.
Aston Villa, maybe, if they sell Grealish. They might need someone a bit dynamic, someone who can do a bit of everything. He dribbles, he shoots.
I wouldn't bother with that.
He provides, but
I would want to go to a good team. Like I'd be looking at your AC Milan's, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw him linked to AC Milan.
Like I would want to go to a big club after. He's always been someone who I thought he was always highly touted. Like he used to play for Vitesse, who is like kind of Chelsea have like this connection with them in the Eredivisie, so they loan a lot of players there.
Yeah.
So they're an exciting team, and I always remember this guy from FIFA. Once again, FIFA providing the knowledge, but he always had silly dribbling and silly pace.
Yeah,
and he was like really agile and stuff. And I always thought this guy just seems like a jet.
Yeah.
But yeah, this year seemed to take the next step. And he was like, I watched the highlights of that relegation playoff this morning, and once again, he was just like the main man.
Yeah, 8 goals, 5 assists are pretty impressive for a team.
Yeah,
we finished
in the relegation
18th.
Zones. Yeah. 2 dribbles a game. Once again, as we mentioned, that's very good. 1.4 key passes, which is pretty handy, as you said, for a struggling team. So,
and 2.6 shots a game, also pretty impressive off the wing.
So yeah, I really like him.
Yeah.
2 other guys that I want to mention: Sebastian Sean Law. He probably deserves to be bought, but I have to admit, probably shouldn't go to anyone too big. He was a 25-year-old centre-back who played for Paderborn. So the problem with all these relegated defenders is all their stats are boosted because they just get peppered every game.
Yeah.
But I guess you got to take it for what it's worth. 4.5 tackles and interceptions a game, 5.7 clearances a game, which both are pretty silly. I think 5.7 interceptions... 5.7 clearances would have him in like the top 20 in Europe, and then 4.5 tackles and interceptions would have him around the 50th mark in the top 5. Then he had an 88 pass accuracy percentage, which is pretty handy. Once again, the top 50 you have to have a 90% or higher pass accuracy, so he's just outside that, and for a bad team, that's pretty impressive. And then 2.5 aerials won a game, which is pretty handy. So he's someone who could be looked at by, probably not from other leagues, probably just from a mid-table German club, but probably deserves a pickup. And then another dude is Eric Thommy. It's Tommy with a H, but I assume it's just Tommy. He played for Fortuna Dusseldorf. He was on loan from Stuttgart, actually, who got promoted this year. So technically, he's still in the Bundesliga. He's a 25-year-old midfielder, plays all over the joint. Started 25 matches, 10 goal involvements. He's just like a really all-round decent player. Nothing special, really, apart from that 10 goal involvement is probably the standout of his stats.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, defensive stats and attacking stats, they were just solid all around, like 1.1 key passes, 1.3 dribbles, couple tackles, couple interceptions. So it was nothing outrageous, but just seemed someone too good for the Bundesliga. Zwei. Yeah, two Zwei. Yeah. But
Silly
like
knowledge.
he's staying in the Bundesliga. I used to do German in primary school, and for 1 year in high school, but yeah. Ja, mein Name ist Hamish. Mein Hobby ist Fußball. Ich bin Dick. I just said my name is Hamish. My hobby is soccer, and I'm fat. There you go. Dick is fat in German, for anyone wondering. So yeah, he probably is too good for the Bundy too. Maybe even too good for Stuttgart, but yeah. That's pretty much all I got for the Bundesliga, unless you want to add anything to it.
No, that's all I've got as well. I think
I thought
it was a pretty good, like close title race until Bayern went on that run. So I think it was what we expected from the Bundesliga season, if I'm honest. I think everyone expected Leipzig and Dortmund to be better and to push Bayern close, which they did, but Bayern too strong in the end. So good on them, fucking dickheads.
Yeah, it's kind of cock teased us there a little bit, Leipzig and Dortmund.
Yeah, honestly.
We'll cop it. The margin kind of ended up being a bit bigger than we were expecting, but anyway, as you said, it's a really good league actually.
Yeah, it is.
For me, it's overtaken La Liga. I'm not really the biggest fan of the La Liga anymore. I think it's a bit of a rubbish league, to be honest.
Yeah.
Where I like Germany, I think there's a lot of good players, a lot of good signings,
a lot of good young managers as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they just have I think they have awesome scouts in Germany. They seem to just get a lot of the good young players in, like your Marcus Thuram and stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's where a lot of the big players come from. Where La Liga, Serie A is getting a lot better the last 2 years. It's taking big strides, but La Liga kind of seems to be a league where if you're not from Barca or Real Madrid, you're Spanish. And
you're
that's
irrelevant.
all it is. Yeah, like your teams like Bilbao and Valencia, they're just like 100% Spanish, which is just stupid. It's like, I don't want to watch the Burnleys of the world.
I was about to say.
The racist sides.
The racism.
Bilbao's actually racist, just quietly. You have to be born there to play for them. And like they used to boo like Inaki Williams for being black, but yeah. Now moving on to French football, so Ligue 1. Champions were PSG. Champions League winners spot winners were Marseille and Rennes, or Stade Rennais, depending on where you're from. Europa League spot was won by Lille, and the relegated sides were Amiens and Toulouse. Normally there's a relegation playoff, but that was cancelled because of COVID. They thought it was a bit unfair to chuck someone down there. The Coupe de France final, PSG beat Saint-Etienne, and the Coupe de la Ligue final is actually taking place, I think, next Wednesday or something. It's between PSG and Lyon. Teams that impressed you the most, who are you chucking out? I'll be honest, I hardly watched a single minute of Ligue 1 footy.
Yeah.
I'm going off the research here.
Yeah, I'm going with Stade Rennais, or Rennes.
Yeah.
I think it's their first, I think it was the obvious one. But I think it's their first Champions League qualification in maybe ever.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I'm doing that, if I remember correctly, I think it's their first ever qualification, which was extremely impressive. I think they made a couple of like pretty impressive signings as well. And then
they lost a lot of players as well, which
didn't they?
So they did well. They lost Ismail Sarr.
Yeah, Ismail Sarr, yeah.
For 30 mil, and then they lost quite a few players for like 10, roughly 10. So they did well.
Yeah, just as well as that to like show that they could develop a player as good as Kammerfinger. I think that was it's going to be just as important for the club when they recoup whatever money they get for him. I think that's going to be huge for them in order to maintain this like leap forward that they've done. I think if they can capitalize on his sale in the next season or two, I think they could become one of the better sides in the League One.
It's a tough league to be in because obviously PSG is so far ahead of everyone, but there's a few like Leon and stuff have left the door open basically.
Yeah, for sure.
For a team to really come in and reinforce that they're the second or third best. Because right now it's kind of just open between like Monaco and Lyon have been inconsistent, and Marseille has kind of been up and down recently. So it's a good opportunity for Rennes to take advantage of that. They were one of my teams as well. Monaco took a big leap this year, but they had a transfer loss of 116 million, and they came 17th last season, which is just more the reason why it looked all right. So I'm not including them. That's rubbish footy. The two teams that got promoted, they actually did pretty handy. Stade Brest came 14th and FC Metz came 15th. So pretty handy there. But I'm going to focus on Marseille. They came 5th last year. They've been struggling. They're a giant of French football, really. I think they're the third biggest team historically, I think. Actually, maybe even second. I think Saint Etienne is the most historically successful club, and I think Marseille is close second. Not 100% sure on that one. But they came 5th last year. They've been struggling in the last 5 years, and they jumped up to second this year. They improved by 15 points on last year's tally. That's like when you extrapolate their points per game average times by 38, blah, blah, blah. They did have a mini transfer profit of 250k, so they didn't, blow the budget like Monaco. So yeah, really impressive from Marseille. They look to be slowly becoming a powerhouse like they once were. Well, even 10 years ago, they were a lot better than they are now.
Yeah.
So are they? I'm just checking this. Are they? I think they're managed by AVB. I thought so. Who's kind of making a mini managerial comeback. I think he was unfairly treated in his time in England, which put a bad name in his put a bad stain on his reputation. So I think it's good that he's getting back and showing that he's a really high quality manager. And then in terms of teams that disappointed us, for me, there's probably two clear standouts, Lyon and Saint Etienne. Lyon dropped from 3rd to 7th. They had a net points tally, so last year's minus this year's of 18 points, which is pretty poor. And they actually had a transfer. They had a transfer profit of 32 mil, but that's not good enough still for the club the size of Lyon to come 7th. Especially when some of the teams who finished above them don't even know who they are. And then Saint Etienne dropped from 4th to 17th. They dropped 25 points, so 66 points last season, 41 this year.
Jesus.
So yeah, that's a huge drop. They almost got relegated, which would have been horrific after coming 4th last season. So yeah, have you got any others to mention? Or?
I had Lyon as well. I think their squad is just way too exciting and too talented for them to be finishing that low. I had so much hope for players like Aouar and Depay. They signed Denier a couple of, I don't know if it was this season or last. They've got Cornet, Traore, all players who were once really highly touted, and they could only generate less than 5 shots on target per game, which is really not going to be enough for you to score enough goals as you have to compete anywhere near the top of the league. So they conceded just as many shots as they were taking. They deserve their mid-table position, honestly.
Yeah, it's getting a bit worrying now if I was a Lyon fan. I thought they had a bit of a golden generation come through. I thought they were going to use them well, serve their time successfully at the club, then sell them on, and then just take that next step, a bit like Leipzig have done in the last few seasons, and really take it to PSG. But they've fallen off a cliff. They've lost Ndombele. They've lost Toussaint now to Hertha Berlin for not much, actually. They only got 20 mil for Toussaint, who one point looked like he would have been a 50 mil player. Depay, he missed the whole season, didn't he?
I think he played 1,000 minutes, and then I think it was a knee injury.
He was one of the most informed players, and he had a long-term injury,
yeah,
which hurts, but that's not good form. Fekir left. I don't know if that was this season or last season.
That was this season, I think.
So yeah, a bit worrying. You thought they would have used that cash nicely. They did actually make a transfer profit of 32 mil. So I guess they've got some to spend, and then they've got the revenue of Aouar just waiting to come in whenever they flip him
I think
off.
they're waiting too long to sell him. His value. Someone's going to get a bargain for him very soon.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think teams do that too often. Actually, I think Crystal Palace is the perfect example. I think they would struggle to get 50 mil for Zaha now.
And I don't
they were looking to sell him for 90 last season.
Yeah.
And there's actually someone who I'm going to mention a bit later on who plays for Toulouse, who they kind of did the exact same thing there. So yeah, other teams have disappointed us. Nîmes dropped from 9th to 18th, but they're a pretty small team, so you'd probably expect that.
Yeah.
And then the two sides who got relegated, Amiens and Toulouse, they dropped a lot in performance. They were like 14th and 15th last year, so they wouldn't be too happy with that.
No, chin up.
All right. Now moving into the best signing. Just talked about Nîmes, so I'm going to roll in with Teji Savigny. The great mystery of French football, this dude. He was playing in like the third tier of French football, I think 4 years ago. Then he got promoted, I think, or he either got promoted or got transferred, made the Ligue 2 team of the season 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he made the team of the year of the whole thing of Ligue 1. Like first year in the league, he made team of the year. He was like shortlisted for player of the year. And then this year, Montpellier bought him from Nîmes for 9.5 million. He's a 28-year-old centre midfielder. And once again, he's whipped out a who scored average of 7.45, which, as I said before,
Disgusting.
I think to get yourself in the top 50 in Europe, you have to have an average of 7.31. So he's firmly sitting in like the top 30, top 20 of the top 5 leagues. And this guy's a myth. So 9.5 million as well for a player of this caliber. I don't know. He's just a late bloomer and he's just turned into a jet. 18 starts this year, 8 goal involvements from defensive centre midfield, 3 man in the match awards for Montpellier, who didn't have the greatest season. I have to admit his stats did decline a little bit from last year, but last year he had a who scored rating of 7.89, which I'm pretty sure had him in the top 5 in the world. So it was kind of expected.
It's fucking disgusting.
And he was playing for a team that was kind of getting a lot more shots on them and stuff like that. So, but he had 4.5 tackles and interceptions a game, which puts him in the top 50 for that. And he's a midfielder, not even a centre back. He plays 5 successful long balls a game, which is like right up there. Like I think that's top 10 when you exclude the goalkeepers. He had 1 clearance a game, which is just all right, and then 1.5 key passes a game, which is pretty handy from defensive midfield. So I won't lie, he's a great mystery. It's just random footy, but his stats are ridiculous. Just seems to do it all. Seems pretty decent in attack for a defensive midfielder, and then does a lot in defense as well. So yeah. Not sure if he deserves a huge move. He's 28, maybe just a slightly bigger move, but it's going to go down as one of the weirder careers going around. Do you have anyone else to mention?
I'm going with Idrissa Gueye, first of all. I think most of all, he just highlights like a change in the transfer policy for PSG. I think they're moving away from players who attract more fans and more excitement, but now they're really looking at who's going to improve our side the most and get us actually competing for the Champions League that they really they've always wanted, I guess. And I think he did what everyone thought he was going to do and a bit more. So 5 tackles and interceptions per 90, I think you'd say that would probably put him in the top 50 for midfielders, top 10 maybe for midfielders.
I'd probably put him in, mate, that would have him like top 5, I think.
Yeah, top 5 probably.
Because to be in the top 50, it's 4.6, so that's including defenders. So it's probably like right up there.
Well, one of the men we're going to mention a bit later, he's probably number 1. And then I think what surprised me most, 92.7% pass accuracy. I guess he's probably passing side to side, but still pretty impressive. And then a 7.33 who scored rating puts him in the top 50 if your stats are correct, which I'm sure they are. So pretty impressive first season from him, going up a pretty decent level from where he was before in the Prem.
Do you know roughly how much they got him for? Was it like 25, 30?
I think it was a bit. It might have been a bit more, but
Oh, okay. Well, he's probably worth every penny of it.
yeah, I think so. I think it'll.
I have to admit, I like their transfer policy, but Sarabia almost made my worst signings. He
Really?
was, yeah, just because.
They sold in
But
Kunku and
it's just
signed
because he didn't really
Sarabia.
play. It's just because he didn't really play much, I guess. That's
Yeah.
probably the main factor against him. But yeah, I don't think he really performed up to his price tag.
Yeah.
But for PSG, their prices almost need to be like adjusted because like 15 mil to them is like 5 mil to another team.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, very fair shout with Idrissa Gana Gueye. I've got another one, absolute myth. Don't know who he is. Mounir Chouar, £3.5 million signing. He had a who scored average of 7.3, which has him sitting just outside the top 50 in Europe. He's 21 years old. He went from Lens or just Len to Dijon. He's a left winger / cam. He's 18 starts, 4 goals, 4 man of the matches. And he had 2.5 tackles / interceptions a game as a winger and an attacking midfielder, which is very handy. 2.2 key passes a game for Dijon, which is pretty impressive. 3.5 dribbles a game, which is stupid. And 1.7 crosses a game, which has him planted in like the top 30 in Europe. How many dribbles do we have to say to make the top 50? I can't remember.
I thought you said 2.2.
Yeah, I think I did. And so 3.5, he's probably looking at like a top 10 appearance there, which is pretty silly. So I have to say, I don't know much about him. I did Google his name and like there were a few articles saying similar things like why is this guy not being noticed and stuff like that. But yeah, 3.5 million. He's 21 years old. Looks like a brilliant signing and I'm sure they'll be able to flip him for at least 10 to 15 mil. So yeah, promising player.
I've got just one more. Victor Osimhen.
Oh.
Yeah, spicy. I know. I think he's 20 years old, 13 goals, 4 assists. He came from the Belgian First Division where he scored 12 goals. So to improve on how many goals he scored in the Belgian league is pretty impressive. Yeah. He did play for Wolfsburg before that, where in a couple of seasons he didn't play more than 490s, I think, and didn't score. So he's clearly leveled up, and I think he's going to be a pretty impressive 1-year flip for Lille. I'm not sure how much they bought him for, but people are talking about more than 50 million for him. He looks like a pretty well-rounded player. Can score, can provide. I think he's athletically pretty impressive specimen, so I think he'll have a good career. And I think just the business from Lille to bring him in, have a good season and then sell him and then see if they can rebuild the rest of their side, I think would be good business for them if they do manage to flip him to Napoli.
Lille are quite good at business, actually. They seem to produce quite a good few youngsters. To be honest, most of the French teams do.
They just sold Nicola Pepe last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like Thiago Mendes and stuff.
Yeah, I think Thiago Mendes has been average.
Yeah, I think he's been rubbish.
One of the worst.
Who cares? They sold him for like 20 mil.
Exactly.
So they're laughing. However, in saying that, one of the worst signings is a Lille player for me. His name, I don't know who he is. His name is Yusuf Yazdaichi, 17.5 mil from Trabzonspor in Turkey. 23-year-old attacking midfielder. He had a who scored rating of 6.4, which is utter trash. He only started 9 games as well, which is not ideal. In saying that, he did come off the bench 9 times, so he had like 18 appearances all up, and he had 5 goal involvements, which is pretty good. But his shots per game dropped from 2.5 to 1. His tackles and interceptions dropped. His key passes and dribbles dropped, and his average passes per game and pass accuracy dropped. So he just seems like he's going to be a bit of a flop, and I think they might struggle to recoup that money unless he comes out next year firing, which he will, and he could. But seems like a bit of an odd one. The other guy I'm going to mention is, I don't know if it's Joachim or Joachim Andersen. He's a Danish centre-back. He went from Sampdoria to Lyon for £24 million. He had a who scored rating of 6.69. As we know, that's not ideal. Started 17 games. I won 2.8 aerials a game, which is pretty handy. But pretty much all his stats decreased. He did go from a mid-table side in Italy to a good team in France, but for someone who's 24 and you pay 24 mil, you'd probably want a bit of progression. And he didn't really improve that much.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's probably not the greatest value signing. But yeah. I have to say, these worst signings, they're all probably a bit harsh. It's just tough to pick, really. You got to just look at the big transfer fees and kind of see who didn't perform up to expectation. But 1 year into their contract, who knows? They could, if it's like a 3-year deal, they could come out and make it an awesome signing. So yeah. Do you have anyone else? Do you have a worst signing to mention?
Not really.
Or not really? Yeah,
I think you covered them.
It was tough.
Yeah.
I don't remember who. Yeah,
it was myth locating in that category.
Yeah, I pretty much just grouped together everyone who was a transfer for more than 10 mil and just like looked at who wasn't great. But yeah, a lot of them just didn't play that much, so it's pretty stiff. In terms of players who should get a move, both my guys I mentioned for best signing, Teji Savanier and Munir Chouard, probably deserve a move. Not necessarily a huge move for Savanier, especially because he is 28, but he's been like a top 10 CDM for 2 years in a row.
I know which guy you're talking about now.
It's kind of hard to argue with that.
I've just remembered.
It was like that freak last year who every time you checked who scored, he was just weird.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah, I remember.
And no one knows who Neem is, so everyone's like, "Who is this geezer?"
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually a really interesting story, his career.
Yeah, good on him.
So those two probably deserve moves. Shower, he's 21, but he is at Dijon, so he probably won't get the biggest move. And the other person I picked for this actually got his move. I was looking at his Wikipedia and it said he had changed clubs, so I was like, oh, fair enough. But his name's Hussein Kamara. He played for Stade Rem as a left back. He's 26 years old. He was signed, I think, 3 weeks ago by Nice for 4 mil. He had 7 man of the matches in 18 games.
Stop it.
5.2 tackles and interceptions a game. So we're talking Wan-Bissaka numbers here, boys. 2.1 clearances a game, 1.6 dribbles a game, 2 goals, which is pretty weird from left back. And he had 1.5 shots a game from left back. So some strange attacking stats, but all jokes aside, those defensive stats are freakish. As we were saying, kind of stuff we would see from Wan-Bissaka last year. So, and I don't think Rem were bad at all this year. I think they might have been like sitting in 7th or something. So it's like he was playing for a team who was at the foot of the ladder and he was just getting smashed. So yeah, he got his move that he deserved, but probably arguably deserved a bigger move. But yeah, we'll see how he goes next year for Nice. Anyone you think deserves a move?
Speaking about freakish, Eduardo Camerovinga, 17 years old, 5.6 tackles and interceptions per game. So he's basically just chopping everyone at 17, it's just pretty insane, honestly. I think he was 16 for half the season as well. So
yeah, he was 16 when he bummed PSG.
Yeah, I think he had 3 man of the match performances. One was against Lyon, where he scored the winner in the 90th minute, dribbled past 2 players and then just slotted it. And then a man of the match against PSG, where I think he scored 1 and set up 1, maybe, or set up 2, something like that. And I think
announced he's staying as well for this season.
Yeah,
they announced he's staying.
I don't think they don't need to sell him. He's only 17. He's going to be god for the next.
But that's big for them.
15 years. So I think a couple more seasons, and they'll still be able to. When everyone recovers from the virus, they'll be able to sell him for close to 100, maybe. If he keeps performing like this for 2 more seasons, he'll go for at least 100. When Real Madrid are rebuilding their midfield after Kroos and Modric leave, they'll just try and schnaffle him up, I reckon. And then that'll just set Stade Run up for the next 20 years. They'll have enough money to keep themselves afloat. Honestly,
that's freaky.
This one man is he's just built, man. He's just athletic, and then he's got poise on the pill. He's shown moments where he can create, and then obviously in every game he's just chopping fellas left, right, and center. So
yeah. I didn't even bother researching him because I knew you'd chat about him. So
yeah,
pretty silly though. 5.6, that must have him in the top 1 or 2 and that's as a midfielder, not even a defender. So
It's just weird to think that he's 2 years younger than us.
yeah, it's pretty disappointing, really. I'm just here in my bedroom talking about sport, but that's okay.
Talking about him while
okay.
he's doing the damn thing. Good on him, honestly. Happy for him.
Shopping bids.
Imagine the line. Imagine the line outside of his doorstep, mate.
Just bang, bang, bang. Now, in terms of relegated players, anyone else you want to mention for that? Or...
Osimhen, but I think he's going to get his move, so...
Yeah. All right, so relegated players. I'm talking about someone who was highly touted last season. He was being rumoured up to 30 mil. I know Patrick Van Straten on the old Football Daily was a huge fan. Now he's only valued at 9 mil by Transfer Market, but that's always a little bit unders. He's a 22-year-old playing for Toulouse as a DMC, so a CDM. Ibrahim Sangare.
Oh, yeah.
This guy... He was like the hottest prospect for like a week last season, and I haven't heard anyone talk about him since. But his stats are still pretty handy, especially for a team that got relegated. 25 starts, 5 tackles and interceptions a game, 2 clearances a game, 1.1 key passes, 1 shot, 1.2 dribbles a game, 4 successful long balls a game.
Oh, that's disgusting.
So, similar to like Teji Savanier and Camavinga. Obviously, each stat is freakish, but it's just more freakish that he's so well-rounded. Offers in every passing, attacking, dribbling, blah, 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 defending, which is just what you want from a midfielder.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's probably someone, and you could get him at a silly rate right now. I reckon you could get him for less than 15 mil.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're getting relegated, so their buying power's they don't really have anything, because I don't think he would cop playing in the Ligue 2. So... that's definitely someone who should be picked up. And the other person I want to mention, just quietly, I'm kind of sad Toulouse are getting relegated. I don't know why. They're a club that I searched them up. They're not even that historically good, but they're a club that I associate with the Liga. I like to see them there. But they did get bought the other week. They got bought by this investment group. So they could be coming straight back up. So who knows?
Yeah.
And then this other dude, once again, don't really know who he is. Serhu Girassi, 24-year-old from Amiens, 23 starts, 9 goals. That's basically all I have to say. It's just pretty handy. 1 assist. He won 4.2 aerials a game as a striker. He's only 187 centimeters.
That's
so I'm not sure what he's doing.
He's just a bit taller than me, mate. So he must have an absolute leap on him.
Yeah, dead set. What is that? 6'1"?
6'2", maybe 6'1", 6'2".
That's silly business. And he had 1 clearance a game, which I'm not really sure what he's doing as striker.
He's just using that.
I thought I'd mention that. Yeah, maybe corners actually.
Yeah,
maybe that's a good shout.
I just thought springs.
Yeah, I thought he was worth a mention. He is 24, so he's not that young, but too good to be playing in the second division.
Yeah,
but but definitely Sangare should be looked at. Probably not by the top tier, unless you want to be sort of frisky, signing a player who's going to be relegated to the Ligue 2. But I think I don't know what defensive midfielders they have, but I think even someone the size of Lyon or Lille could. I'm not sure what you're going to lose from it if you're snatching him up for 10 to 15 mil.
Yeah, could be better than Thiago Mendes.
Yeah, I think he's someone who should definitely be picked up. But I bet you watch a German team snap him up, because that's just what the Germans do. Smart lads. I think Tram got relegated last year actually. So watching Gladbach will slot in the boys. But yeah, that's who I wanted to mention. Do you want to mention anyone for that category or not really?
Couldn't find any of these farmers who I actually recognise. So. Didn't have any of these guys in the sites, but I'm sure.
I'm so confused with Sangare. I just don't know what happened. Everyone was frothing him. I
know. I remember Vensron just hyping up his stats, and they looked pretty good from what you were telling me. So
yeah,
you never know.
I do have to say though, CDMs
they have got these stats.
They do. But in bad teams, you always, as I was saying before, for that Sebastian Sean Law dude from Paderborn, you've always got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. It's like Basuma. Basuma, they were talking about.
Tyrone Mings had 7 blocks or clearances a game or something this year, I think.
Yeah.
It's like he's probably not the best centre-back in the world, is he? But, yeah.
Mm.
But nah. So that's pretty much it. I'm actually impressed we got this done in an hour and 5 minutes. I thought this was going to push 2 hours. But nah, I think we did well. We didn't make it too... I don't think we made it too heavy, which is important. But we're definitely going to be doing one. I want to do... Obviously, you've got to agree to this. I can't just hold you against your will. But I definitely want to do a similar episode, but just for England.
Yeah,
So
for
Premier
sure.
League, maybe a tiny bit of Championship as well. And then I would like to do, once the Italian League finishes, I think this weekend, a Spain-Italy combined one.
Yeah.
And then in terms of soccer, coming up, we're going to be chatting about, I'm sure we'll chat about the Champions League after the games get commenced again. And then before you know it, it will be preview time for next season.
I
The
know.
transfers will be flying out the window. I can't lie, I'm not on top of them. I know Sane went to Bayern for 40 mil, despite being valued at 80 by Transfer Market, who are always unders, which is insane.
Yeah, no,
Ake
it's a
Ake
steal.
went to Man City for 41.
They can make it
Lallana and
happen.
Lovren left. I don't really know any others.
Lallana went to Brighton and...
I know Brighton bought Joel Veltman from Ajax.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
actually,
I saw that he took the number 34.
yeah, it was only for a mil as well, which actually isn't too bad.
Yeah.
But in terms of the soccer right now, the Scottish Premier... So this is coming out next Thursday, so we are filming this 6 days ahead. The Scottish Premiership starts this weekend, so there's an overlapping season. It's actually outrageous how this season's going to work. Most of the top 5 leagues don't start till September, I don't think, or late August. But yeah, the Scottish Premiership's back. The EFL Championship playoff final takes place, I think, in 3 days. Fulham booked their spot this morning. They won on away goals. So it's Brentford versus Fulham, a bit of a London derby kind of thing. So looking forward to that. Both are exciting teams to watch, I've heard.
Brentford, the boys.
Yeah, I hope Brentford get up. They're just a very smart team. But Fulham, they are shit stirrers with the old Mitrovic and Knockout combination.
Knockout?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
They signed him permanently, I think, the other day.
But
yeah,
I thought he was like a Brighton, like stalwart or something.
Yeah, he is. He played for Brighton for like 4 years, I think, and then they loaned him out this season because he did absolutely nothing
in the Prem.
Yeah, remember he came up as like Championship Player of the Year.
Yeah, I remember talking about him.
I'll tell you who's the Championship Player of the Year that's not going to be a flop, buddy. Saeed Benrahma. We'll definitely talk about him next episode.
No.
I'm telling you to talk about him. In terms of the Champions League, it starts next Friday, so it'll be the day after this comes out. We've got Real Madrid versus Man City and Lyon versus Juventus. And then the Saturday, we've got Chelsea versus Bayern, Napoli versus Barca. That's one half of the draw. The draw is so unfair. And then the quarterfinals is Leipzig versus Atletico, Atalanta versus PSG. So one of those 4 teams is making the final. Leipzig, Atletico, Atalanta, PSG. So I think PSG are going to get pumped 4-0 in the final. But yeah, it's so unfair. Man City, Madrid, Juve, Bayern, and Barca all in the same draw. I think Bayern could actually pump Barca in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
The only thing is Messi will score a hat-trick.
So 6-3.
Yeah, so he'll make it not a pumping. But looking forward to Man City, Madrid. That should be interesting. Man City, I think, are 2 goals up.
Is Leipzig? Who are PSG? Who is PSG?
PSG have Atalanta in the quarterfinals, so they will be the heavy favourites. But
Atalanta, they put them in the net.
It could be a 5-5 draw, that one.
Yeah, honestly.
That could be high scoring. Leipzig, Atletico, that will actually be interesting as well.
Yeah, I could see PSG losing to Leipzig in the semi. Honestly.
Yeah,
but Werner's not there.
That would change Leipzig's season.
I don't know why Werner can't stay there until the Champions League's over. Because he's training. He's training at Chelsea at the moment. Like, that's kind of fucked.
Yeah, that's so unfair. But like, I guess contractually, it makes sense. But yeah,
they should have worked that into the contract because that is fucked. Honestly, imagine if they win the Champions League and he's not there.
Well, more importantly, imagine if they lose because they need a freaking striker,
Yeah.
which is probably going to happen. Buddy Patrick Schick and Yusuf Poulsen, like they're the boys. But I'm sorry.
Who is Nkunku feeding, mate? He's not feeding anyone.
He's going to have to feed himself.
Honestly,
Hopefully.
imagine he puts on an absolute clinic against his old side. Just
Leipzig Atalanta semi.
I'm talking 7-7.
Absolute scenes. Like, we're talking tissues everywhere. To be honest, PSG versus Leipzig would be good as well. Just because of the players. But yeah, very dog Champions League draw, I think. But yeah, anyway, that's it. There'll be more soccer content coming your way, really. It's pretty jam-packed 6 weeks in terms of soccer, with seasons ending, seasons starting, Champions League. So yeah, looking forward to it. I don't know why I just thought of this. I'm actually pumped for Euro predictions next year. It'll be episode bloody 300 by then, but I don't know why. I love previewing the international tournaments. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Rhett.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.
Enjoy your weekend to those people listening. And yeah, stay safe, everyone, and stay close. I was going to quote Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, but I can't bring myself to it.